Good evening, fifth graders. This evening's lesson is going to be dealing with subtraction. Yesterday was with addition. Today is going to be subtraction. Some things are different with subtraction. In an addition problem, the answer to an addition problem was the sum. The answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference because you're trying to find the difference between two numbers, how much bigger one is from the other. So we're going to be working with whole numbers and decimals once again. Before we get going here, some expanded notation. Once again, we're going to only do a couple of these. I'll circle the ones we're going to be doing, and then I want you to try and solve them yourself. We're doing this one, and this one. Okay? If you remember your expanded notation, that'd be great. I would press pause right now because I'm going to be working through these problems. Right here, we got 0.5 plus 0.09. Over here, we have 0.1 plus 0.002. As you can see, I have two zeros here, 002. Down here at the bottom, hopefully you can see these colors. I'm sorry, kids. We have 0.09 plus 0.003. All right, on to today's lesson. Right here we have two numbers here. We have 81 minus 47. And we have 8.1 minus 4.7. They want to know, how are these two problems alike? How are they different? Okay. First of all, we're going to go ahead and solve 81 minus 47. We have 81 minus 47. It's just like adding. We're going to be looking at the columns. I know this is review for all of you, but sometimes we need a little refresher. We cannot take 7 from 1. So we have to cross off the 1 and make this an 11. We have to add 10 to it. Where are we getting that 10? We're getting it from this side, which we have to make this a 7. Do you see how we used to have 81 now and we kind of changed it to 71? That's kind of what it looks like. If you look closely, that's what just happened here. We're going to go ahead and subtract. We have 11 minus 7, that's 4. 7 minus 4, we have 3. So the answer is 34. Now they want you to solve 0.1 minus 4.7. 8.1 minus 4.7. As you can see, the decimals are lined up. Just like adding, subtracting, you need to have your decimals lined up. Can I take 7 from 1? I can't. So then it's all basically subtraction again. We can't. So we have to make this 11. We have to borrow to the left. 11 minus 7 is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. Bring down the decimal. Now we have 3.4. It's the same numbers, but the decimals are in different spots. So a lot of times when you're dealing with numbers, you think of money. Everyone loves a little bit of money. Right here we have $34, where you can buy a lot more things compared to $3.40. Which can't even buy you a Happy Meal at McDonald's, okay? So keep these things in mind. The decimals are very important. So if all of a sudden I'm looking through your work and I'm like, hey, how about you double check that work? Double check that problem. And then if you give me an answer of, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Green, I forgot to put the decimal. Well, as you get older in life and you have money in a bank account, and if your banker tells you, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put the decimal in, I think you might be a little annoyed because you have less money. Okay, it'd be kind of nice if they put some commas in by accident. If you know what I mean, then you'll have even more money. But we want to make sure we have this done correctly. Take a look here. We're going to be go ahead and borrowing. If you're having trouble with borrowing, this is a perfect time to watch. I've been watching how we've been solving some study links, and at night, the bottom practice part of the study links, we've been having trouble borrowing. So let's take a look here. Can we take 6 from 4? We can't. So we have to take this 4 and change it into a 14. So that means we have to borrow over here to the left. As soon as you do that, just go ahead and stop and solve these two columns. A common thing is kids always go all the way over to the left, which gets things all messed up here. 14 minus 6, we have an 8. Now, can I take 5 from 2? I cannot. So I have to cross this 2 off and make it a 12, just like I did over here with the 4. And then I'll borrow to the left. Everyone see what I just did there? Now 12 minus 5, I have 7. 3 minus 2, I have 1. 178 is my answer. Let's go ahead and do another one here. Once again, you know I'm going to be solving these problems, so go ahead and press pause, write it on a sheet of scratch paper, and see if you did it correctly. You're only going to learn in math if you're working the problems out yourself. Let's take here. Can 5 go from 4? No, I have to borrow again. We're going to make this a 14 again. I'm going to borrow from this 2 and make this a 1. Do you see how I just stopped there? I'm going to go ahead and subtract now. as I go here, 14 minus 5, I get a 9. 1 minus 1, I get a 0. 9 minus 3, I get a 6. My answer is 609. Now I've got some decimals. Once again, I have these already lined up for you, but in your math journal, if you have to line them up when you write them on your scratch paper, you're going to go ahead and do that. You're not going to be able to use a calculator in today's lesson, so keep that in mind. 8 can't go from 4, so I'm going to make this a 14 again. Keep this in mind. I know my last 3 examples, I've had a 4 there. If it's a 1, it's going to be 11. If it's a 0, it's going to be a 10. Here it's a 4, so it has to go to a 14. I'm going to go and cross off this 2 and make it a 1. Do you see how I didn't go over to the 3 and cross it off? Just take one step at a time. 14 minus 8, I've got the number 6. Can I take 4 from 1? I can't, so I'm going to cross off this 1 and make it an 11. I'm going to borrow from the 3 and make this a 2. 11 minus 4, I have 7. I'm going to carry the decimal down. 2 minus 1, I have 1. My answer is 1 and 76/100. Hopefully you're getting these correct. And you know what? I've been known to make an error or a time or two working with this, so please keep that in mind. Now, this one's kind of tricky, so watch carefully. This is one that normally gets kids stumped. I'm going to kind of explain it as I go, so go ahead and follow along with me. Can I take 7 from 3? No, so this becomes a 13. I have to borrow here from the 0, but there's nothing to borrow. Does that make sense, kids? There's nothing to borrow from 0. If you have nothing, you can't borrow something from somebody. So this is where you can't stop here. You have to keep going to the left. So I'm going to borrow one of these, so it becomes a 5. So I have a 10 here, but I still haven't borrowed anything to get to the 13, so I have to make this 10 a 9. You see how I had to borrow from somebody else in order to borrow from somebody to the right? Let's keep that in mind, okay? So now I have 13 minus 7, and I have a 6. 9 minus 9, I have a 0. Bring the decimal down, and I've got a 3. I'm going to go ahead and solve this problem one more time so you kind of understand what's happening. This is where kids get confused, or where my former students have gotten confused at least. Here we go. This becomes a 13. This becomes a 10. Okay. This becomes a 5, but I had to borrow from the 10 to make this a 9. Okay. As you can see, do you see how I have, and I'm going to kind of show you what's going on here. Do you see how this is a 59 here? And it used to be a 60. That's all I'm doing when I'm borrowing. I'm just taking 1 away from the 60 so I can borrow it all the way over to the 13. Hopefully that made a little more sense. I'm not trying to confuse you. Go ahead and borrow now. I got 13 minus 7. I've got my 6. I got 9 minus 9. I got a 0. 5 minus 2. I've got a 3. And the decimals move down. Last problem here. It's a little bigger, same exact concept. I already know my decimal is going to be here, which is pretty convenient. 8 minus 3, I don't have to borrow at all. Excellent. It's a 5. 9 minus 8, I don't have to borrow at all. This is a 1. I have to borrow here because I can't take 9 from 6. This becomes a 16, and this becomes a 4. 16 minus 9 is 7. 4 minus 2 is 2. Oh, I did say last problem, but we're going to do one more, just in case you need extra help. Okay. 5 can't go into 4. I'll go ahead and change colors here. This becomes a 14. This becomes a 5. I'm not going to move over to the 2 yet, so keep listening. 14 minus 5, I have a 9. 5 minus 8, I have to borrow, so this becomes a 15. This becomes a 1. 15 minus 8, I have 7. I can't take 7 from 1, so I have to borrow over to the left. This becomes an 11. 11 minus 7, I've got 4. 8 minus 3, I have 5. There's no decimals, this becomes a comma. All right, hopefully this helped you tonight. Remember, press pause, rewatch the videos, you can rewind, you can fast forward. This should help you with a review of subtraction. Remember, the answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference.